Today on the show, we're thrilled to have Anne Allan, Princess Diana's former dance teacher and author of the memoir Dancing with Diana, which is out September 10th. Over the course of 9 years, the former Princess of Wales and Anne became not just teacher, dance pupil, but close friends, and Anne became one of Princess Diana's closest confidants. As the book reads, they would talk, laugh, cry, and always dance. Anne is a theater director, a producer, an artistic director, and an educator, and now an author. Her career began as a classical dancer, training on scholarship at the Royal Ballet School in London. After becoming ballet mistress for the London City Ballet, she was invited to become the private dance teacher for Princess Diana, which she did for 9 years. We're thrilled to have you here today. Welcome to the show.
Well, hello and thank you. It's lovely to be here.
The book is absolutely fantastic. So, why decide to write a memoir about your time spent with Princess Diana, and why was right now the right time to put it out into the world?
Well, it was a mixture of events. The first was I had over the years maybe done about just two or three interviews um, for mainly for television because it looked to me like it was very interesting documentaries and it would be highlight the princess in a beautiful light. So I thought, okay, then I can do that. But then I was always a bit kind of bitterly disappointed that by the time we got to actually viewing it on television, they had focused just on well, I what I would call the darker, the salacious side of things. They were
Mm-hmm.
mainly interested in her time with how she thought about Prince Charles and the affair. And there was so much more to the princess than that. And I really wanted to express this. So that was one of the reasons. And then it was consolidated when my little granddaughter at that point, she was age 3, she saw a photograph on Nana's shelf. And she said to me, Nana, who's that? And I said, oh, well, that's the princess. And of course, when you say to a 3-year-old, that's the princess, they're like enthralled.
Mm-hmm.
And so she said to me, well, tell me about your Nana. And then it kind of really sparked in me the need to kind of put all these lovely times that I'd had with the princess down on paper. And so I started writing that night.
Amazing.
When you think of Princess Diana, what is the first memory that springs to mind, whether it has to do with dance or otherwise?
No, it was instantly to do with how she was. There was such a warmth with her and such charismatic eyes. She was so painfully shy and yet brave enough to come and do dance classes.
Mm.
It was the beauty that kind of surrounded her. I realized this was a very, very special person.
Mm-hmm. Well, you obviously, we've established this by now. You were Diana's dance instructor. Anyone who's read about Diana, studied Diana, knows that dance was very important to her. She loved it. She had a true passion for it. And this went back to her youth. And she and the two of you started working together not long after her wedding. So can you tell us about her love for dance and what it meant to her? Because it really was one of her life's passions.
And yes, it was. I discovered that as we went through. Basically, at the beginning, I was just told the princess would like to do dancing, and I had really no idea what that meant, as far as styles were concerned. And I had read somewhere where she had done ballet and that she had really enjoyed ballet. But you have to remember, this is when you're right. It was just literally just after the wedding, a couple of months after the wedding. So there wasn't a lot known about her at 21. And when I met her, I discovered that when we were doing the classes, her deep love for not just ballet, but for dance and her admiration for dancers and how much she wanted to know about the art and what dancers went through. And it was such a genuine love. It made it so easy for me to work with her and be able to just talk. We were both discussing things that we loved to do, which was dance.
Well, the book goes into how the two of you connected. So, can you tell us how you came to be her private dance teacher?
Yes, I think it is how we did connect, because we started by having this common subject of just our both of us loving dance. And it happened in the strangest way. And actually, I was at home in my Highgate little apartment, and I had just finished putting my little daughter to bed, Emily. Um, and at that point, I was both dancing and a ballet mistress for London City Ballet. And the telephone rang in the other room. And I dived through to pick it up because I knew how dangerous that was when my daughter went to bed, that it might wake her up. And a voice at the other end of the line basically just said, "Hello, I'm Anne Beckwith-Smith. I'm the lady in waiting to Her Royal Highness Princess Diana."
Wow.
And you're in such shock that you just say, "Oh, hello."
What do you even say to that? Yeah. Did you
Yes,
think it was a joke?
I did actually. I thought,
Mm-hmm.
okay, so which friend has decided to to say this to me? And yet there was still something in the voice. I thought that they got a terribly good accent. um, and I don't know, you just for a minute you think, oh my goodness, what if it is something that is actually happening or not? So, and it was quite a short call. And basically she said, well, let's meet on Friday to discuss. And so you're in such shock, you just go, oh, yes, oh, okay, that sounds lovely. And then she said, well, let's meet at the Ritz. And I thought, okay, this is really too funny. This is somebody that's just been. But at the same time, the next comment was, and would you be kind enough to please keep this confidential?
Mm.
And it was then I thought, well, gosh, if it is, it's that, it would be terrible if I didn't turn up for the meeting. So I kind of agreed and was kind of anxious to get off the phone because I didn't want to be talking because I was terrified my daughter might wake up.
Mm. Well, so there's so many highlights. I mean, 9 years is a long time, and we're going to get into how close the two of you became. But one of the highlights of Diana and dance, at least it's publicly known before your memoir comes out, is her performance of Uptown Girl in December of 1985. After she performed, she declared that the rush from the performance, in her words, beats the wedding, of course, referring to her wedding to Prince Charles in 1981. That's how exuberant she felt. What was your reaction when she said that? Because of course, Diana did not just get married in front of 100 people in a small chapel somewhere. She married in front of the world, and that would have been a rush on its own, right? But
Yes.
performing this song was beats the wedding. So what did you think when she said that?
I think both Wayne Sleep and I were completely I think you could see it in our faces. We were just gobsmacked, as we say. Um, you also have to remember she had terrific humor as well, the princess. But in that moment, there was a thing about in that second when she came off stage, there was such exuberance with her, and there was such delight that she had achieved something that she'd always loved to do and done it in a way that was, out there in the open. So, I mean, I was a little bit shocked and gobsmacked, and at the same time, found it delightful in a way that that's how much it meant to her, because I'm sure it didn't be the wedding, but I'm sure in that moment, she just felt, oh, that was part of her humor. She always made people at ease with laughing. But coming off stage after being on the biggest stage, you know, and a renowned stage like that, I mean, it was quite a feat.
Mm.
Well, that night was depicted in season 4 of Netflix's The Crown. So, what did you think when you saw that? Did they get it right?
Well, I think what's important to remember is that The Crown is fiction. It's a
Yes.
drama. And I think everybody tends to think, oh, it's factual, everything is factual. Um, but I wasn't sure whether to laugh or to cry, to be honest with you, because
Mm,
um, I felt it a bit sad that they portrayed the dancing teacher in the usual kind of strict, austere light of an old-fashioned ballet teacher with, in black in the stick, which is, you know, really not what happens nowadays. I mean, you
sure.
see how far dance has come. So that was one aspect for me. And then I kind of giggled to myself because I thought if people really knew what had been going on as far as our dancing was concerned, and the fun times we had as well as the serious times we had. And
Hmm.
we did a lot of work. We did a lot of really um, technical work. And, she really wanted to strive. She didn't take things easily.
Hmm.
She worked at everything. So, um, I mean, I will say that there was one time she said to me that she could dance down the halls of Kensington Palace. She did say that to me. And but when I saw it, I went, oh my goodness, I don't think quite like that. That's what I thought.
Well, we all deserve a creative outlet, right? I mean, it's to
I
relieve
think
the
so.
pressure of all of our lives, whether we're Princess of Wales or not. And you, as you've alluded to, and the book certainly goes there, you became so much more than Diana's private dance teacher. You became a trusted confidant and a trusted friend. She confided in you about her struggles with her husband, then Prince Charles. She even told you that he prefers an older woman, alluding, of course, to Camilla Parker Bowles. You write in the book that Diana felt tremendous relief to be able to talk with me. And these are my words. I'm sure that she did because there were probably so few people that she could trust and confide in. And how did you feel when, because this is the most famous woman in the world? This is not just any, and also, the teacher pupil relationship doesn't always have a confidant element to it, right? But this
No.
did, and with the most famous woman in the world at that. So how did you feel when she confided such personal aspects of her life to you, the most famous woman in the world opening up to you in this manner?
Well, I think what everyone has to remember is I was with her as things were happening at that time. I think nowadays, the retrospective of knowledge that we have, um, or at least think that we have, is is one thing, but as things were unfolding, I think I was delighted that she opened up enough to be able to feel that she could talk,
Mm-hmm.
but it was also really important that she knew whatever was said in that room was strictly between her and I.
Mm-hmm.
And you're right, there's not usually that relationship in a teacher pupil relationship. But I've also like worked one-on-one with artists, and there is a natural unfolding of what they're going through as they're either learning a role or just being. And over time, I think she felt that she could say. And then there were some days it was so painfully obvious to me that she was not feeling quite herself and that things were troubling her. And so I felt honored that she would discuss it with me. But I also, at that time, felt quite worried about it and quite stressed myself about it. But I was so glad that we both knew this was something that would be kept between us
Mm-hmm.
in the room, and which we ultimately did. Um, as I say, we're talking now quite a few years later. It's
Yeah,
about
what,
40 years
27
later.
years later? So yeah.
Yes, yes, yes. So, that's, as I say, it's important to remember how difficult it is for the person, no matter who it is, and that they are able to open up and say what's in their mind, because by saying that, sometimes they can get the right kind of help, or at least just have somebody to talk to. And so I felt pleased that she would say and tell me some things, yes.
Mm.
What was the most cathartic part about writing Dancing with Diana, and what was the most challenging part?
Well, that's such a wonderful question because I've never really written a book before. Um, and, you know, as I was writing it, I realized how much it had also been part of my life in that time and how difficult at times it had been, um, because I felt I could never say what was going on. And so I felt for her a lot about how things would resolve for her. But there was also so many joyous times, and sometimes I would be laughing because I would suddenly remember something that was obviously tucked way back in my head somewhere, um, and it seemed to flow quite naturally. Um, and so I found it both joyful and sad and emotional. And the main thing for me was I wanted people to be able to see the other qualities that I had seen that maybe not be. I know she's an iconic figure, and I know most people find that she's a, her spirit is a generous spirit and kindness, but there was just such a wonderful lady there. There was just such a wonderful person there.
Mhm.
And that's really what I wanted as I was writing, for people to know. But I also wanted to be blatantly honest as far as I knew things. And I only knew ever one side of the story. Um, but I was glad to be a sounding board and felt pleased that she would discuss some things with me. Yes.
So, what was your last communication with the princess before her death on August 31st, 1997? And what would you say to her today, if you could say anything?
Oh, I would say hello. Oh,
I've missed
I
seeing
would
you. Yeah.
say lovely to see you, Um, I would just want to give her a big embrace and tell her how incredibly brave she was, and how much we all care deeply about her. That's what I would want to say to her.
What was the last time you spoke to her before she passed
The
away?
last time I spoke to her was, well, actually, we didn't get to speak. It was the last thing I had as far as contact was a message from the hotel saying that Diana had called. And this was after I was back in London, um, when we were doing Kiss of the Spider Woman. And there had been a gala that night, which by an absolute fluke, Wayne was dancing at. And Wayne's manager, George Dawson, knew I was in town and invited me to this. And I knew I wouldn't see her that night, but I kind of wished that we would meet that night. So it was just so gratifying to receive a message the next day. And that was just a couple of months before the separation was announced. And then I felt once the separation had been announced that she would move on to her own life. And I almost felt that my job, or part of what I knew, was complete. She had found who she was and what she wanted to do.
When readers close the book, how do you hope they'll feel, and what do you hope they'll take away from the read?
More than anything, I think I would love them just to remember her. I think remember her, and maybe through reading some of these times, I'm hoping that they will see the joy in her and the kindness in her and the fun in her. And in my way, I think it's a way of me honoring her and sharing stories so as people have a deeper understanding and remember that she was, like everybody, just a wonderful person. She was just a person. Um, and that we want to just make sure that she knows how much she was loved.
Hmm. Our last question for you, and I could listen to your delightful voice all day, but you write, and you mentioned this at the top of the interview, that you have often been bitterly disappointed with interviews regarding the princess. There was always so much more to this incredible woman than what was depicted. So you've kind of touched on this already, but just to drive it home, what do you hope that readers learn about Princess Diana from reading your book, and maybe what have we been missing all along and gotten wrong about her?
I'm not sure that we've got lots wrong. It's just there seems to be just a storyline of
Mm-hmm.
of just one part of her life. I would like readers to know her insatiable love for dance.
Sure.
And the fact that she knew that dance could help her and that she enjoyed that. She enjoyed the freedom of movement and the joy through music and dancing. And not that she was a dreamer, but it was just she just loved that art, and she felt that life, should be lived in a certain way, and we should have compassion for each other and understanding for each other. And I want that side of her to shine through. And I think a lot of people do already adore her. And I just hope that they learn even further about the sincerity of her, the authenticity of what she wanted to do with her life.
Hmm.
Well, this was such a great read. I love dance myself, and I loved the insight into a unique little known part of Princess Diana's world. So, for our listeners, Dancing with Diana is out September 10th. And thank you so much for being here today.
Well, it's a pleasure. Thank you. Thank you to everybody who might read the book.
It's an absolute must read. Thank you.
Thank you.